Hey Walleye Wisdom Watchers, this is Gary Spiker reporting from Robbins, Iowa, where we've safely, Tracy, Hayward and I have gotten back to Tracy's house and dropped off a bunch of goods, and then we get to go to the shed. Tracy, congratulations my friend, you finished 20th in the National Guard FLW Walleye Tour event up at Red Wing. How did that go for you?
It went very well. I thank you for all the tactics you gave me and all the stuff you've taught me, and it paid me pretty good dues up there this trip.
Yeah, I know you had some great pre-fishing. We caught some nice fish. You got to fish with Victor Wood for a few days, help out the Walleye Wisdom team. That was really great. But you had two really good tournament days, and with a little more luck and some bigger fish, might have been able to make the top 10.
I went out with a young man from Minnesota who was a local guy up at Red Wing, and he had a pattern that he thought was really working well for him, and he thought we would do really well the first day. And wouldn't you know that the river came up about a foot, and the current changed on him on his bank that he was fishing. But we went up there, and what we were going to do was throw crankbaits up to the rocks and reel out real slow into the current with the crankbaits. And he had been patterning some really nice big fish. Well, started off really well. About 2 casts, I caught about a 2.5 pound smallmouth bass, and about 10 casts later, I caught a 5.5 pound walleye, and then about 10 more casts, I caught a 3.5 pound walleye. But things slowed down drastically after that. We were able to put a 5-fish limit together, and we had a decent weight the first day.
Right. And day two was entirely different for you, I understand.
Yes, it was. Day 2, I went out with a young man from Minnesota that it was his first experience of fishing on the river. He was a lake fisherman, and he had been up there pre-fishing and hadn't had a lot of success. And he told me that what he'd like to do when we went out in the boat was that he would like to run the boat and watch the graphs, and he would tie baits, and he wanted me to take care of the rods. And I said, well, whatever worked for him would be fine with me. And just so happened that we got to our first spot, and I set a couple rods out on the inside and set a couple outside rods, and I looked over and I had a bite on a rod, and I grabbed it, and looked over, I had a bite on another rod, I grabbed it, and I asked for a little help from Craig, who was the pilot in the boat. I said, I need a little help here, Craig. And long story short, we got about a 7.5 pound walleye and about a 3.5 pound walleye in the first 10 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
So we were able to put together another 3 fish to have a 5-fish limit. And then we started fishing for big fish, and we weren't successful with big fish, but we were able to weigh 16 pounds, which put me in 20th spot and gave me my first check. So I was very grateful to the 2 young men that I fished with. They did a great job, and I learned from both of those guys, and we were successful.
Yeah, I think both of us learned a lot. I learned that I need to be a little more flexible and a little more tuned into changing water conditions, because as the river came up, it changed the current flow, and it changed where the bites were coming from dramatically. And it's amazing to me to see the flip-flops in some of the weights. But you did the right thing. You got a limit each day, and I think coming into these tournaments, the goal ought to be to get that limit, and you're sitting in good shape with some really nice points as we head off to Port Clinton in about a week and a half. What are your thoughts on heading to that big water?
I went with you last year there, and that was the first tournament I ever fished, and it was an eye-opener for the big water and big waves the first day.
Yeah.
And it was tough fishing, but I caught my first 10-pound walleye there. And so I'm anxious to go back. We've kind of talked about what we think we're going to do there, and we believe it's going to be some reef runner crankbaits or a spinner bite. But we put together a couple other things that we want to try and we think will work, so maybe we can come up with a good pattern and catch some nice fish out there.
Yeah, it'll be fun to try your idea for Walleye Wisdom Watchers, because we're going to try something entirely different in that big water. We're going to try a technique that we're not sure anybody has tried, and folks, if it works and catches the big fish, we're gonna have a lot more to talk about. So Tracy, thank you so much for helping practice fish, and the great success up at Red Wing, and looking forward to leaving for Port Clinton, Ohio with you in a week and a half.
Well, I'm thinking about getting ready already, and I want to thank you, Gary, for letting me be part of the Walleye Wisdom team and for letting me tag along with you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Talk to you later.
All righty.